So, in the last session, we explained or explored the idea, because I'm not explaining, I'm not trying to convince you it's right, but we explored the idea that the happiness that we experience is a fairly temporary form of happiness, and it could be said that it is the absence of agitation or absence of irritation. So, where does that agitation or irritation come from? Yeah. So, the first thing that's important here is that no experience lasts forever. We know everything is temporary and transient. Even if the object is like a new car and it seems brand new and it's going to last a long time, which it materially it will last a long time, actually on a level of happiness, it isn't the same car, is it? It gets older, it gets scratches, it breaks down, and we just get bored with it maybe even after a year. Some people change their car often. So the source of once apparent happiness now becomes the source of apparent unhappiness or boredom or displeasure. So the same object can have a limited lifespan in how it delivers happiness or unhappiness to us. Yeah. So I thought that's a useful first point. In fact, that we could say that happiness and unhappiness that we experience are two sides of the same coin. So you could equally argue either that the presence of certain things brings happiness or unhappiness, but you could also argue that the absence of certain things brings the opposite. So you could say when the things that make us unhappy or that we think make us unhappy, when they pass away or they come to an end, we could be said to be happier. So, for example, like I really hated school. I would pin school as a kid, that school as being the cause of my unhappiness. But when it got to home time, it wasn't really the coming of home time. It was the ending of the school day that brought me happiness. It was like the ending of the unhappiness that brought up a sort of idea of happiness. But I don't know if I hope that makes sense. That they're on this sort of like sliding scale. So all of this coming and going, and happiness arising, happiness disappearing, unhappiness doing the same. It's probably very fair to say that our life is punctuated by unpredictability or uncertainty. And this uncertainty is always present. We know that because we can never say or control when the circumstances for our happiness or our unhappiness might appear, or when the circumstances for our unhappiness or our happiness might disappear again. So I might have been happy this morning. I might wake up and get struck by lightning. I could never have predicted that was going to happen. I might wake up and just drop dead from a heart attack. This happens all the time. See, read about someone the other day, aged really young. They're unpredictable things. At the same time, so I might get a phone call saying someone's left you £1 million in their will. Someone you I don't know, looked after in a care home when you were a teenager. These odd things happen. So on a much lesser level, they're happening all the time. Things are coming and going. We cannot predict that. But obviously, and this is the point that I'm trying to get to today about why we have this constant agitation or irritation that we talked about in the first video. And because we can't predict our own happiness, we're constantly in a state of, I don't know how to explain it because it's down to terminology, but you could say we're on edge or we're in mild anxiety, or you might just say we're irritated or there's an underlying agitation. And it's because we don't like this unpredictability of knowing when our happiness and unhappiness are going to appear and disappear again. So, of course, we then try to live out our whole lives trying to create greater certainty or predictability, yeah, so that we can predict or control our happiness. Yeah, and we sort of equate certainty and happiness together. So that then might start to make some sense of why we do the things we do in our life, why we're so controlling, why we're trying to get everything in the right place and all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle to fit just correct so that we can get rid of this uncertainty and thereby increase our happiness because we don't like uncertainty. But the nature of our current happiness is very uncertain and very unpredictable.